"Fly this helicopter and I'll marry you," the powerful CEO laughed, her voice echoing through the private helipad as her team chuckled behind her. Everyone turned to look at the janitor, an older man in his worn-out uniform, holding his mop and bucket, eyes lowered in embarrassment. At that moment, nobody could have guessed that this so-called janitor was about to change everything they thought they knew about worth, dignity, and hidden greatness. Before we dive in, if you believe every person deserves respect, no matter who they are, then hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that touch your heart. It all began on a cloudy Monday morning at Aurora Industries, one of the top aviation companies in the country. The CEO, Claire Kingston, was known for her brilliance and her arrogance. She had built the company from the ground up after inheriting it from her father, and she didn't like being challenged by anyone beneath her level. That morning, the company was preparing for an important test flight. A group of investors was coming to see the latest model helicopter, one that Claire herself designed. Everyone was rushing to make sure the place sparkled, including Daniel, the janitor. Daniel was quiet, polite, and invisible to most. Every day he mopped floors while executives walked past him like he didn't exist. No one knew much about him, where he came from, or why a man in his 40s seemed to carry so much sadness in his eyes. When the investors arrived, something unexpected happened. The pilot scheduled to demonstrate the helicopter suddenly collapsed from exhaustion. The investors grew restless. The deal was hanging by a thread. Claire panicked. "We can't delay this," she barked. "We need someone to fly it, now." The technicians looked at each other helplessly. Nobody else there could operate the machine. That's when Daniel, quietly cleaning near the hangar doors, spoke up. "Ma'am," he said softly, "I can fly it." The entire hangar went silent. Claire blinked in disbelief, then burst into laughter. You're a janitor, not a pilot." Daniel didn't flinch. "I was a pilot once," he replied. "Before the accident." His words sent a faint whisper across the room. Claire smirked, amused. "All right, let's make this interesting," she said, her tone sharp. "Fly this helicopter perfectly, and I'll marry you." Everyone laughed. Cameras were rolling. To them, it was a joke, humiliation disguised as entertainment. But Daniel didn't laugh. He nodded quietly, wiped his hands on his uniform, and walked toward the helicopter. As the engines roared to life, Claire crossed her arms, waiting to see him fail. But within seconds, her smirk faded. Daniel's hands moved with precision and grace, his every motion calm and confident. The machine lifted, hovered, and performed maneuvers smoother than any pilot she had ever seen. The investors stood in awe. The helicopter danced in the sky, slicing through the clouds like poetry in motion. When Daniel landed perfectly, not a sound came from anyone. Then, the hangar erupted in applause. Claire's lips parted, speechless. How did you do that?" she whispered. Daniel stepped out of the helicopter, his face calm but his eyes glistening with emotion. "I was a test pilot for the Air Force," he said. "Until one mission went wrong. We lost control in a storm. My co-pilot didn't make it. I couldn't forgive myself, so I walked away from flying, and from everything." The air was heavy with silence. For the first time, Claire didn't see a janitor. She saw a man who had lived, lost, and carried pain deeper than anyone around her could imagine. Later that evening, Claire found Daniel sitting by the maintenance bench, fixing a broken tool. "Why didn't you tell anyone who you were?" she asked softly. He looked up, a faint smile on his face. "Because people don't listen to who you are, they only see what uniform you wear." Her eyes filled with tears. She had mocked him publicly, yet he showed no anger, no pride. Just quiet strength. In the days that followed, the story spread across the company. Employees started treating each other differently, more kindly, more humanely. Claire called Daniel into her office again. "I can't marry you," she said with a small laugh, remembering her own foolish challenge, but I would be honored if you'd join us again, as our chief test pilot. Daniel hesitated. Only if you promise something, he said. Promise that no one in this company will ever be judged by their title again. Claire stood up and extended her hand. You have my word. Months later, Aurora Industries became known not just for its technology, but for its heart. The janitor who flew the helicopter inspired a new company policy: respect has no rank. And sometimes, when Claire visited the hangar, she would see Daniel mentoring young mechanics, teaching them both about flight, and about humility. She often remembered the moment that started it all, the foolish dare, the mocking words. And she smiled. Because in that one unexpected flight, she learned the truth: greatness doesn't come from titles, wealth, or power, it comes from the strength to rise again, even when the world has already written you off. If this story touched your heart, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because the world needs more people who see the human behind the uniform. And remember, sometimes, the quietest people carry the loudest stories.